Hello and welcome to another episode of One on One. Today I am with Simon Wright, founder and chairman of TGP International. Hi Simon.
Hi, great to see you. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Enjoying this beautiful weather here in Ramadan, here in Dubai.
Shall I say what's left of it, or maybe let's not jinx it?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. We'll keep that. No, I think it's going to be beautiful going into that lovely period now, aren't we? So.
Good. How's your week been so far? I mean, it's only Tuesday, but
It's been great. It's been a busy weekend. Obviously, we started our Ramadan celebrations here at Expo City on Saturday. So, team, I came along to see how things were going, and the team have done an amazing job in the first few days. And it's been great to see so many people already enjoying their iftars and their suhoors here at Expo City. So it's been a great start to the week.
Simon, I'm super thrilled that we get to sit down with you and share your story with our audience. Before we get into TGP International, I'd very much like to get to know you better. I believe that you went into hotel school just after high school.
I didn't even make it to hotel school, if I'm honest. I went straight into work. So
Oh, you went straight into
straight
work?
into work, yeah. I'd actually started working part-time while I was still at school. It was a very challenging time economically in the UK back in the mid-80s. I'd come from the northeast, which was one of the most challenging areas in the UK at the time. So I had the chance to come and work in a local hotel, doing a part-time work, and fell in love with it from the first moment I was there. I had all these storytelling chefs that I was working with, so I fell into that. Then at the age of 16, I decided I wasn't particularly academically focused, if I'm being polite about it, and had the chance to go and start working in hotels, so straight into work. I did go back and do some studies afterwards, but yeah, I spent the first sort of 5 years of my working life just job hopping around hotels and restaurants.
What was it that prompted your first job in the hotel? Is because you needed a job, that's why you did that, or was it something about hospitality?
There was a little bit of need factor, because it was a bit like if you wanted some spending money, go and earn it, which sort of happened. But the second I walked into that environment, it was just magical. So as I said, I fell in love with it from the first moment, and I won't say how many years, many years later, I'm still doing it and still jump out of bed in the morning excited to be involved.
Am I correct in saying that you were a conference hall porter?
That's my first full-time job, yeah. Carrying bags around.
Yeah, what does that do? What exactly did you do back then?
Basically anything that anyone else didn't want to do was what I did. So I'd start my morning off normally, helping everyone take their luggage out to their cars. Then we'd go and set up all the meeting rooms and all the banqueting and the events, and making sure that the water was on the table and the glasses were all there. And then just used to sort of look after the conferences all day. And then in the evening at 5 o'clock, waiting for all the guests to arrive, taking their luggage out of their car and taking it up to the bedrooms for them. So it was long days, but a lot of fun.
The hospitality industry is very glamorous to the guests and the outside world and the consumer, but it is a very hard job. It is a hard industry. At that age, and it sounds like it was a pretty strenuous job, what was it that you loved so much about hospitality?
People. Your job is just to make sure people have a good time, make sure that people leave with a smile on their face, walk out of whatever business you're in feeling better than when they came in. If they come in super grumpy, there's a challenge to get them going out feeling happy. If they come in a decent mood, how do you leave them euphoric by the time they leave? So, and it's quite instantaneous in its gratification, because you have the person there in front of you, you can look after them, and you've given them you've made their day special. That's sort of something really, and that's interesting. Plus, even more so probably now as I've sort of grown in my career, is the impact and the influence you can have on helping other people have a career and grow and go on to bigger and better things. What
is the most challenging part of being in hospitality, would you say?
I mean, it's the same thing that makes it wonderful. It's the people, because obviously people never fail to find another way to surprise you with how they can do something that you didn't expect them to do.
Sure.
And that's not always positive. So it, like I said, I think like most things in life, whatever's the most positive element of what you're involved in,
can also be,
the weakness can also, the challenge can also be linked to it.
When we think about how many decades you've spent in the region and in hospitality, if you could tell me what is one of, or a couple of the biggest changes you've seen in the shifts, particularly here, that really made you feel like we're on the cusp of something really big.
I think if you look here in Dubai, it's gone from, in a very, very short space of time, to being, from what was already an interesting, exciting city to being absolutely one of the restaurant, food and beverage capitals of the world. Now it's not a question of, it's something from Dubai, will it work? It's a question of, wow, it's coming from Dubai, that's amazing. You see what's happening in Saudi, this sort of catching up from a change in culture and a shift in culture. This amazingly young population with a very clear dynamic vision of what they're going to do is amazing to see. But then you go and look at places like sort of Egypt, where you've got this amazing sort of culture, this amazing creativity. Kuwait, some of the best food and beverage creations in the region are coming out of Kuwait as well, especially those that are for the local market. So there's so many changes. It's so exciting, and I think it's the pace of change which is breathtaking at times.
It's unlike anything I've ever seen anywhere else in the world.
You can get stuff done.
So you've lived in so many different places, some extraordinary cities like London, Paris, even Beirut. If you could, I know this might be hard, but which city stole your heart and why?
I love London. London has become home, even if that's not where I was born. I love the energy and the vibrancy of the city. I still look at Beirut as a place that has such a melting pot of so many amazing things when it comes to the culture, the people, the differences, the background, the hospitality. A group of people that can be out sitting on an amazing rooftop at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. They're all back at their desk at 8 o'clock the next morning after a couple of espressos. The beauty of the beach, the vibrancy of the city, the hospitality of the people, and then you drive 45 minutes away and you're up in the mountains, and again, it's such a melting pot of cultures and things. I think that's always been a standout for.
So Simon, let's talk about the road that led you to establishing TGP International.
Yeah. So again, I had a fabulous career working with lots of great names in the hotel and restaurant industry. From as I said, from leaving school all the way through to my early 30s, and then I honestly don't know why, but I woke up one day and went, I want to go out on my own and do my own thing. There was no big seismic change in anything that was happening in my life, apart from this sudden desire to go and sort of set out on my own. At the time, I was very lucky. The boss I was working for was very supportive, and he sort of said, we don't particularly want you to leave, so continue working for us, but if you want to go and do some advisory work on the side, you can. And then back in 2002, that's when TGP was born, and we just sort of grew from there. Very depending on what I'm doing, very sort of organic growth. It was a bit chaotic, if I'm honest about it. It was whatever came up. We were doing anything from working on kebab shops in the East End of London to working with big 5-star hotel chains who were coming into the market for the first time. We were operating a couple of 1,000 capacity nightclubs. So it was literally all sorts of everything that we were doing. And that was really our first sort of 5-6 years was sort of working along those lines, and this sort of organic and chaotic.
And you have seen quite a lot of change in the industry throughout your time. What has been some of the biggest trends or shifts that you still remember?
I think if I look back, there's been quite a lot of segmenting in the business. So I grew up working in hotels, and historically food and beverage, running hotels was seen as very much the same thing. If you look at them now, they are such distinct, different businesses with different skill sets that are needed. And there's still some hoteliers that run very, very good F&B, but I think now, there's people that just focus. You look at most of the big hotel companies, they focus on the rooms, they focus on the hotel. And again, you have to think about security and safety and all of those things. Whereas in food and beverage and bars and restaurants and clubs, you're there to give people a good time, to create an atmosphere and an ambience. Of course, it's still got to be secure and safe, but it's a slightly different balance. So I think the professionalism and knowledge of how those businesses are different, I think, has been a big shift over time. And I do think the business is becoming a little bit more well thought out. A bit, we still have gut feel. We still have to go with what we really think is going to work. But there's a lot more thought process. There's a lot more planning. And I do think we have a huge opportunity at the moment for people finally to realise how important the hospitality business is when it comes to shaping cities, to shaping communities. And I think that's the next big area to look at from everything we've
And
gone
I
through.
think it's on the move, right? I think people are really figuring this out quickly,
Yeah,
especially in Dubai, especially in the UAE, I want to say.
Yeah, I think in Dubai there's been a real focus now on understanding the impact of master planning and thinking about your food and beverage and your retail and your entertainment back in the early stages, not just about building something which looks nice, it needs to function, it needs to be well thought out, it needs to be activated as well. You can't just open something and hope that people will
best.
come. You've got to do all of that. And then again, obviously with some of the huge development that's happening in Saudi Arabia, this very early stage master planning, which we're very fortunate to get involved in a lot of, is becoming really, really important. So as much as they're appointing architects and project managers, they're really sort of bringing in experts that understand the world of food and beverage, of retail, of entertainment, to actually put the infrastructure in place.
I was on a panel recently and we were having a conversation about sort of whose responsibility is sustainability. How can hotels, for example, get more guests to be aware and do things of awareness? And then also we're looking food waste. Whose problem is it? Consumers think it's the hospitality's problem. Hospitality says you've got to play your part. What's your take on all of this?
I'm always a big believer in that if you want to do something, you've got to lead from the front and do it yourself. So I think you shouldn't badger or shame a customer into doing what you think is the right thing. I think, if you are going to, all the big hotel companies in the world who still have these huge buffets, throw so much of it in the bin at the end of the service, there are ways to not have to use those things. And I have these conversations all the time saying, you don't understand, you can't do breakfast unless you have a big buffet. You can, you just need to think about it, you need to plan it differently. So I think you have to lead from the front. You can't browbeat and shame people into doing the right thing. I think you've got to do it yourself and lead from the front. Customers shouldn't have a choice about, whether they're going to, eat the right amount from a buffet. Don't give them that situation in the first place.
How do you do it in your businesses and your projects? How do you ensure that you are making the right decisions for the biggest impact?
As I said, some of it is absolutely a must-have, and it will automatically happen in any project we do. We have our big pre-opening checklist if we're opening something, and there's a section in there about all the sustainability elements to make sure they just happen. If we are developing a concept for somebody, the same way that we'll focus time on what the food's going to be, what the drink is going to be, the music playlist, the uniforms, all of those elements, there'll be sort of a section in there about the sustainability and what the key factors within that particular concept will be when it comes to sustainability. As I said, it might be leaning into creating opportunities for people. It might be a focus on the packaging. It might be a story about the actual food and where it's coming from. So hopefully you have your must-haves that are always there in any concept that we do, and then you have the elements of where can we elevate that and highlight it and get people talking about it. But again, not in a way that makes people feel uncomfortable, something that naturally just makes them feel better that they're involved and supporting it.
You've led quite a number of successful food halls. How would you describe a food hall? What is your description of a food hall?
As much as people don't like to hear it, it's next generation food court. That's what it is. It's taken what used to be the food court, which sort of has become people look down on now. But when food courts first started, they were exciting. It was interesting. You could go and try lots of different food. Sure. But they've just been taken over now by the big multinational global brands, and so therefore the quality levels and the perception of them is not seen in the same way. Food halls now seem to be exciting. I think the beauty of a food hall is you can really focus on curation, you can really focus on supporting local businesses, young entrepreneurs. You need to balance that. You've got to be careful you don't go too far down that route. You still need some people that can cope with volume, people that are going to help drive the footfall in and create the halo effect within there. And of course, that world of the food hall can be anything from Harrods in London, which is super high end, with a big average transaction value, right down to the street food market, which is outside and set up and with a sort of a sound system that's brought in and done from there. So you've got these huge things. The other thing which has also helped replace not just the food court, but think about the world of the nightclub. The nightclub world is gradually dying. People are less interested in drinking and sort of that being the stimulus for the evening.
Going crazy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone is more interested in food. So if you can create a venue that has the energy, the atmosphere around some great food, why do you need to go to a nightclub afterwards? You've got everything there captured, and you don't wake up next morning worried about what you did the night before. So.
And feeling horrible.
Yes, exactly, suffering from it. So, so I think that move supports communities, great community builder, great for social interaction, and can be a great way to support up-and-coming entrepreneurs as well. It's something pretty exciting to bring together. And as you said, I've had the chance to be involved in Anxiety Pachika here in Al Kabulan, where we're sitting at the moment. It's the world's first African dining hall. We opened the first dining hall in Saudi about 18 months ago, which has been a huge success. So great to be involved in that, and lots more to come.
And how have you been seeing consumers, the industry, the neighbors, the guests responding to these food halls?
I think if you get them right, and that's what we always say, the copy-paste, rollout model within the food hall, we're not big fans of. We don't think that's the right way to do it, because again, you've got to be rooted in local community. You've got to make sure that your price point, your food offer, energy levels, what's right in the middle of Knightsbridge in London, is very, very different from being in Hoxton or Shoreditch in London. And the same here. If you were doing something in, one of the sort of cooler, design districts either here or in Abu Dhabi or wherever, it's very different to having something in Dubai Mall.
Yes.
So you've got to get that right. And I think, once you pitch it correctly, the local community will love it. And we always sort of set out and go, how are we going to get it busy for lunch? You can over time, you can always make something busy for dinner, but lunchtime trade, which is always normally the benchmark of whether you're going to have a good long-term successful F&B. How can we get a lunchtime crowd in here? And that's going to be people that are somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes away. Yeah. So that's how we always sort of start our ideas of how we're going to make it busy and long-term, and how we're going to make it sustainable to work.
So there's been quite a lot of attention on food halls, not just in the industry and the media, but also in investment. There's a lot of people pouring quite a substantial amount of investment into food halls. What do you think they figured out or are trying to figure out here?
I think hopefully they've all stopped investing in dark kitchens and cloud kitchens, because I think that's a slightly more challenging sector to be in. I think the reason there's a lot of investment coming in, first of all, from the bigger developers, when they're looking at, rather than investing in individual brands as their anchor tenants, to invest in a food hall, it spreads that risk a little bit. It's a bit like investing in a little portfolio rather than in just one particular stock and share. And if you can work with the right partners who know how to curate and do that model, it's a great way to sort of think about it. It also means that if you're opening something up, and let's imagine you've got 16, 18, 20 different offers within that food hall, you haven't just got one marketing plan happening. You've got however many counters you've got plus one, because you'll do your overall marketing plan, but each one of those tenants is also going to be marketing and say, come and see me here, which then means if you're coming in to see the burger operator, the shawarma guy next door, who might not be as famous, gets the halo effect of seeing that from there. And the other great thing is, if you invest in one tenant in a single restaurant site and give them some support, if it doesn't work, to replace it is challenging, and you're probably going to end up with a time period where that particular area is empty. If we have a tenant that's not working in a food hall, they'll close at the end of the weekend, and by the following weekend we'll have the new tenant will already be in and up and running, because it's such a simple structure to be able to do that. So there's lots of advantages to it, and I think we're seeing some of the people we're working with, some of the mall developments we put food halls in, we've seen the food hall jump by 30% plus in the whole mall, just because people are coming to check out the food hall. So the rest of the tenants very, very happy, and a lot of them are paying turnover rent, so the landlord's very happy because they push everything up from there.
In this specific region, what would you say are some of the challenges?
Specifically within food halls, or generally?
Specifically in food halls.
I think getting people to understand that again, and this is our opinion on it, that you need to take a chance with some entrepreneurs in there. So you're going to put some people who can't come to you and say, come to my restaurant and see my bricks and mortar operation, because they might be running a food truck, they might be running a supper club. There might just be someone that you've tried their food somewhere and gone, wow, that dish is amazing, because you can create a safety net around them. But sometimes getting people to take a leap of faith is a challenge. Always, I would say when you're working with property developers, they're always very happy to invest in bricks and mortar and physical things. getting them to invest in the soft elements. So that might be the marketing, the initial branding, and most importantly, the people. Making sure you've still got great people meeting and greeting at the front door. You've got great facilities management team, making sure the venue is always clean and tidy and safe and well operated. That can probably be some of the hurdles to get over in there. But once you've got over that and they see what they're getting, they're normally pretty happy with the results.
You took me on a little tour of where we're sitting right now, which is Expo, and I want to come and visit as soon as possible because I see the vision. I'm excited about the offerings and the diversity of the different foods and even the different locations. You could sit here in a food truck, you could go and have a seated dinner if you wanted to for sahur later in the evening. So I'm excited to try that out, but I want to talk more about the food hall projects that you have led and you're currently working on now.
So the ones that we've been involved in up until now, we've Deepa Chica, which is in the Nikhil Mall on the Palm. That was, in our opinion, probably the first proper food dining hall that opened up in the UAE, which is a great project with the Nikhil team, and we helped work with them on the conceptualization, all of the interior design, and then the initial curation, and then the leasing team there took that on and have done a brilliant job, I think, since taking that to next level. Here during Expo 2020, we launched and still continue to operate Al Kabulan, which was the world's first African food hall, which we did with our wonderful friend and partner Alexander Smalls from New York, and there, which was, during the event time, we had 22 different chefs throughout the 6 months, and became the second highest grossing food and beverage outlet during Expo, which we were very proud of because nobody knew the name, nobody knew much about African food, or a lot of people didn't, so that was great. At the same time, we ran the Rising Flavors, which was all about taking the best chefs from the GCC, from the 7 different countries, and launching them into the market, which was very exciting. Probably most recently, the very exciting project is Al Mamlaka Social Dining, which is in the Kingdom Centre in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh. It's blown the market apart. It's gone absolutely crazy. Even more so since the Metro opened. I think the other weekend we did 12,000 people one Friday coming through the door, which was fun and interesting. And again, it's just captured the moment in Saudi of what's happening, the excitement.
Why do you think it's performed so well, Simon?
I think we got a really nice balance in there from a curation point of view. We had roughly a third of brand new international chefs coming to the market for the first time, so people wanted to come and try those and sample them. We had about a third of well-established operators who very kindly came and did something a little bit different for us. So even if they were a well-established operator, they would do 4 or 5 signature dishes that you couldn't get anywhere else. And then we supported some incubating talent as well. So we took people that had never had a permanent food and beverage operation. So you pretty much, it was when you came, every single counter was offering you something that you probably couldn't get anywhere else. So I think that was a great help. We have a great location, which obviously always helps.
Always.
I have to say they're very, very proud of the TGP design team. They did a beautiful, beautiful job in terms of the look and feel. But I think also we got the price point right. We weren't too expensive. I see people in there from the office tower next door 2-3 times a week coming in for lunch. They come in and eat healthy and pretend to eat healthy on sort of Monday, Tuesday. Thursday they're having a big burger and their cheat day before they go back home for the weekend. But then they come back with family and friends at the weekend, which is great. And it's a price point where everyone said to us, this is great because it's accessible and we don't have to spend a lot of money to come and have a great time. So I think that's really those elements that have really helped make that a success there.
In terms of mega projects, we've seen an influx of these, especially in the UAE. You have been involved in these projects. Can we talk a little bit about them? I suppose we're also going to get to COP28 and the incredible work that you did there. You can tell us all about that. But please, let us talk about the giga projects.
So, I mean, we've been involved in a number of sort of projects from a master planning point of view, but obviously the one that is very much sort of front and foremost has been this amazing location that we're sitting at the moment, which has now become Expo City Dubai. We had the great chance to be reintroduced to Her Excellency Reem Al Hashimi post the pandemic. So we were asked to come in and do a food and beverage review post-pandemic, and with a brief of how do we make sure this Expo 2020 event mirrors what people expect from Dubai. And I think that's probably been that moment. And when you have someone so visionary running such a project, when they understand that it needs to be looked at and it needs to be thought through. And I think there's been a huge move from these big international events having food and beverage as a fuel and refuel offer to actually being something that needs to showcase the local community, that needs to be, needs to match the values of the event that's going on, and it should be exciting, and it should give people a reason to return. So you come to an event, you see it and go, not only is it fantastic, however, I can go back and eat well and drink well for whatever is the right price point that I want to pay, and that's been quite a seismic shift. So we were brought back in to be involved in Expo, and what started out as an original 2-month project morphed into, we are still sitting here many, many years later involved in the project. I'm very happy and very proud to be so. But during event time, it was, I think, everyone that was here in Dubai that visited enjoyed it and had a great time. There was so many things to do for so many people, but the food and beverage, we always got great feedback that there was something for everybody. We got to try new and different exciting things. We brought in 12 chefs that had never been seen before in the UAE. We created concepts, such as Al Gabulan, that were, really to showcase what Expo is all about. We had crazy requests to set up Festival Garden, which we had 19 days to open a 6,000 square metre event space that became a rotating food truck park with music and a kids park and everything else. And the team looked at me and went, "How many days?" I'm like, "We had 15. We took us 19 to do it," which we thought was still okay. But and it was just wonderful to sort of see that. And then I think now seeing the new vision with the new master plan of taking something that was built for Expo 2020 that has now then morphed into this wonderful city that's all starting to come together. And as you mentioned, we had COP28 slap bang in the middle of that generation, which was amazing to be involved in. It was great for us because we had the chance to really deliver what we believed in when it came to sustainability. We pushed every single operator that was working with us, and we were very lucky. We had some amazing people that were supportive, but we took everyone right there with 2/3 vegan and vegetarian menus. We did every single dish was reviewed for its carbon footprint, and we got everything within 1.5 degrees impact, which was our target to do that. The packaging that we were using, we brought in what we felt at the time was the best packaging available in the world, and that was supported by Expo City to, again, really walk the talk and not just say you have to use sustainable packaging. Right. We went, this is the best in the world. We're going to make sure you can have it at a price that won't impact your operations. But most importantly, there was really good, tasty food. That was the feedback that we wanted, and that's what we got from people, and it was a lot of fun to do.
These large-scale developments are challenging, to say the least. How do you manage them, and where do you see them sort of morphing themselves into as they become more and more popular? Because now we have the venues for them, we have the know-how, we've done it before, we've got the case studies.
Yeah. So, I think, a lot of it comes down to planning, but that planning is nothing without the people to then go and deliver it. And I think you also need a slight level of deranged craziness if you want to be involved in those events, because if you're doing something like that, there are always going to be last-minute things that pop up. We plan everything, we tabletop exercise everything. However, there's always going to be something where you go, "Oh, that just doesn't work. Great, what do we do about it?" And you need a group of people that rather than spend sort of hours going, "Well, is that your fault or my fault?" Just go, "Let's solve the problem." We make a note, we make sure next time we're ready for it. But that sort of sense of passion, of hard work, of belief, and ultimately professionalism that's focused on what are we doing to deliver this to a world-class level, is what always pulls it all together. So,
where do you think giga projects in this region are going? Because we're seeing quite a lot of massive projects, like we're talking thousands of people, venues in hospitality, in nightlife, even in F&B. Where do you see them progressing? If not maybe this year or the next 5 years?
I think it's interesting at the moment. There was probably a feeling perhaps in Dubai 4 or 5 years ago that venues were looking to get smaller and more intimate again, and then you go down to J1 and see what's happening down there now. Beautiful, I was down there at the weekend, beautiful, buzzy, huge places that you're like,
incredible.
Wow, only in Dubai could you do this.
You could just take a walk and do a different place for breakfast, lunch and dinner.
As long as you're going to take out a loan from the bank probably before you get there. But
that is true. You might have to sell your car, for lunch and figure the rest out later.
My view is don't actually spend anything. Just walk in and pop in and wander around a little bit. Then you still, almost the cool factor washes onto you if you
yeah, you can take a little selfie if you wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's, you can feel that in Dubai. Dubai's, again, going through one of its great growth spurts again, and we're always amazed, very pleasantly confounded the fact that it just keeps going and growing and seeing all these wonderful people come in. So I think there's an element there of that happening. I think in other sort of parts of the Middle East, I think there's probably, for example, if you look at Saudi, there's definitely been an oversubscription there of fine dining, upscale restaurants, and I think there needs to be more of a focus on the mid-market. And a lot of the developments we're working on at the moment, we're advising the developers, don't get too excited about always having to have these huge big box restaurants. Focus on your local community. What are people going to want every day for lunch and dinner? You can always bring in those signature special occasion restaurants later on, but build for the community, build for who's working there, who's living there, who's visiting there, and what's around it. And again, if you think about it, populations in terms of spending power are always based on that triangle. There's very few people at the top with a lot of money to spend. There's many more people sitting in the middle with a little bit of money to spend. So if you can curate interesting food and beverage and retail and entertainment for that crowd, it gives you a much bigger chance of being successful and sustainable in the future.
Do you think we sometimes forget about that crowd?
Oh, absolutely. I think again, because of the success, and I have a guilty secret of being a fan of Dubai Bling. So when you see that, I know. It's, my daughter's got me into it, so I blame my lovely daughter for that. But you see that, so everyone thinks that's what it's all about, and it's a little bit what's happened in Saudi and Riyadh. But then now I think people are like, wow, we can still do amazing food and beverage in that mid-market, still great quality food, just make it a little bit more accessible. And I think one of the other huge shifts, which I think is going to happen hopefully over the next few years, is that mid-range hotel sector, the 3 and 4 stars, that historically I think have been probably underserviced when it comes to interesting food and beverage. There's beautiful real estate sitting there, and normally in really good locations. That should be great F&B as well. It can be a great pizza place, a great salad place, it can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be at a price point that elevates it to that sort of fine dining sector.
Because you made a very good point before when we were discussing, that certain strip with all the incredible restaurants, and it's just amazing. But it is extremely expensive and very much catered to a very specific target market with very thick pockets.
Yeah, and what they've done there, I have to say, I was there with Daniel, one of the partners in TGP, and we're saying what they've curated here is world class.
Guaranteed.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
However, as you said, it's for a certain demographic and a certain part of the community. It's important to make sure that you've got equally interesting world-class offers for every single pocket size throughout there. So, yeah.
I know that you're not in this particular segment, but I'd love your opinion on this. Do you think this type of model is sustainable? These very extremely high-priced venues, like literally next door to one another.
I think that it's sustainable if you run them well. If you think there's a graveyard with lots of those places that were very expensive, and where a lot of money was spent and they were very sort of high end, that weren't then translated if they were brought from overseas or whether they were created here. They weren't consistent, they weren't translated into what the local market wants. However, you look at some of those restaurants that have been around for a long, long time now. You look at some of the key ones in and around DIFC.
Zuma, Albion.
Exactly, they've been there a long, long time. You look at something homegrown like Roberto's as well. They're still there, still doing extremely well. And I think, there's always going to be a market for that crowd to go out.
Right.
Like anything though, you need to deliver it well, you need to be consistent, and if you're charging that level of money, there's no excuse. If you're paying 80 dirhams for your lunch, it's very different to paying 250 or 300. So it's going to be a lot less forgiving market if you're up there.
Agreed. Also, there's so many restaurants that open up in this region. Like, I make a running joke that while we talk, 2 is probably in construction right now. You cannot visit every new place anymore. I have friends who've been here for 10 years, 12 years, and they keep telling me they used to have a list of all the new restaurants, and they would visit each and every one of the places on the list. You cannot do that anymore. It's virtually impossible. With as many restaurants, though, that are opening, many are closing. And it is not as easy as it may be perceived to start a restaurant, but even more so to sustain that restaurant. Having been in the industry such a long time, what advice or tips do you have for an industry that is inundated with ideas and investment, but somehow not always able to sustain longevity?
My honest answer would be, if you're sitting there thinking this is a guaranteed return on investment, then go and put your money in a bank or buy some property. That's the first thing. You won't get anywhere near the potential upside. because you can make a lot of money in food and beverage if you get it right. But there's definitely no guarantees. And then afterwards it's make sure you're working with the right people. Location's important, of course. Spending the right amount of money and making something look wonderful and beautiful is important. But ultimately, it's the team of people that you're working with, whether that's getting the right partners, the right advisors, the right team to come and run your venue for you. If you're going to overinvest somewhere, overinvest in that. That, in my opinion, will give you that level of consistency that will give you the best possibility for long-term success and sustainability.
Would you also agree that it might be beneficial to not just focus on fine dining and, like you said, more ideas catered to that wider group of people that just want to be fed?
100%, because there are, as I said, there's a small percentage up at the top end of the triangle who want to spend 250, 300, 350 dirhams a head or more. There's a lot of people sitting in the middle of that triangle that want to go out on a regular basis that have got a much lower average transaction value, but there are a lot more of them. So again, if you're in there doing something interesting, something cool, something that makes people go, wow, that was really surprisingly good for what I was spending, they're going to come back and they're going to tell everyone, and that whole segment is just there for the taking.
Very good advice. I want to talk about TGP International. Tell me about the growth of the business. How many people have you got working with you now?
So as we sit here today, I think we're at 72 people in the TGP team, and then we manage in the businesses that we operate. We manage, we've probably got about another 800 people sitting in those businesses between UK, Saudi, and here in the UAE. So that's where we're at. We've got a lot of people on that team, and we've grown a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. So.
What are you extremely excited about in the next coming months?
I think from a TGP point of view, I don't think we've ever had a team, such a strong team, and a wonderful level of experience with the team. I think I was joking with you before, but we have team members here that I have no clue how they do what they do and why they do it, and I get wheeled out sometimes just to have a bit of grey hair at the end of the table. So we've got this wonderfully talented group of people which just continue to produce beautiful projects and deliver amazing events and projects for us in different parts of the world. Short term, very excited. I'm off to Osaka in a couple of weeks to be part of the Osaka Expo out there. We're looking after the Saudi Pavilion, food and beverage, and we've launched a catering business there to support Expo in Osaka, so that's very exciting for us. We've got a lot of food halls under development in Saudi, here in the UAE. We've also got one over in Doha as well that we're working on, so that food hall sector keeps growing for us. And I love walking in, seeing team members with huge plans out on the desk when they're actually master planning these cities of the future, these developments of the future, and thinking, wow, we're going to have a little bit of involvement in that. Hopefully a lot of involvement if it keeps growing. But to see that in those early stages just is really, really exciting to see coming to fruition.
We've been chatting quite a bit this morning about the people in your business, and it's always so nice to hear a leader who's so fond. You like your people. That's great.
I'm not sure they like me most of the time, but I like them a lot. We have a great team of people. We've got many people who've been with us for many, many years. We try our hard. We're not perfect, but we try our hardest to give people the opportunity to really develop, to grow. There's nice sides of our business, which is you get to work with amazing projects, amazing people. You get to travel to some really interesting places, but it's hard work. It's a lifestyle. It's not something that you're going to be able to sort of clock in and just turn off at 5:30 in the afternoon.
Right. Yeah.
People are very invested in working with us. But I love the fact that there's so many team members have been with us for many years now, having the opportunity to support them grow. And sometimes it's watching people that have been with us that have moved on to something else because we didn't have the perfect opportunity. Sometimes they even come back to us, which is great. And sometimes you see them growing and we bump into them in different parts of the world. So that's great. And I think, really having that feeling that people have got opinions. You might not agree with those opinions, but when they're putting those opinions forward, they're genuinely doing it to make us better as a business, or to make sure we're doing something even better to look after the customers that we work with.
I haven't met all 72, but the few that I have met, I quite like your people too.
They're okay.
They're okay. Yeah, they're good people.
Okay. We keep the bad ones hidden in the back, that's fine.
Okay, this is good news. Tell me about the company culture, because it surely takes a special culture in an organization to derive great people.
I think, as we touched on before, understanding that ultimately the core of everything we do is about those people. You know, if we look at TGP, you know, we don't invest in big buildings. We don't, you know, that's not what we're about. We invest in the people that are working for us. I think we've always tried to have a level of transparency and openness, you know, so everyone in the business knows our numbers, everyone's involved in it, everyone's incentivized on those numbers, and there's a big openness there. We made a big conscious decision a few years back to really invest in the training, the development, and the culture and the values of the business. So, because sometimes you can have a way of working, but if you don't capture that and make sure that we are sharing and talking about what's important to us and letting people know the doors are open, come and chat to us about things if they're not going quite the way you want. And then just allowing the rest of the leadership team to take ownership and you know, make them feel that the decisions are there for them to be made and for them to suggest things and put things forward. And you know, of course, you know, we have this wonderful sort of different set of generations in the company. So we've got, you know, we've got the young, cool, groovy, be careful what I say, the kids, as I always in my mind, because they're coming through with all these brilliant ideas, and having an openness to listen to that. And then we've got the slightly more, from an age point of view at least, slightly more mature members of the team. Wise, I like that. Maybe I'll steal that one from you. You know, but you get this balance because, you know, sometimes you hear an idea and go, oh, I've heard that before, but it's been delivered in such a new, exciting way. Sure. There's never a question of, well, we tried it, so we won't do it again. Well, maybe we can try it now. Maybe times have changed or locations have changed for us to do those things. So, you know, we just had a great, every year we get the whole team together, which is sometimes the only time that certain team members see each other because they're in different parts of the world.
Sure.
So we were out in Sharm el Sheikh for 3-4 days.
That's an amazing
experience. It was great. It was, everyone comes together. We talk a little bit about what happened last year, what are hopes and aspirations for this year. We do some fun team building things that are there. We go out for nice meals in the evening. But the most important thing is that physical contact with people. They're all there, they're chatting to each other, sharing stories. And as I said, some people only see each other at one time during the year. So it's good to bring them together. So I think that, you know, that was a long-winded way of saying all of those little elements, you know, really help build that company culture. And you know, we've been really lucky the last couple of years. We got recognised in the Sunday Times as best places to work, which for what I still always feel is a very small, tiny little company, you know, we felt that was great recognition for the great work that
I think so too. Congratulations. I think that when you take care of your people take care of your customers, right? That's the saying anyways. Yeah. How involved are you? Because I'm sure you have all of, you know, management, leadership all in place, but how involved are you in the day-to-day stuff with everybody?
There's parts of the business that I'm not involved in very much at all because I'm not even sure how it works. So you know, I mean, again, we have brilliant designers, we have brilliant master planners, and you know, people doing research and analysis, which I wouldn't add a huge amount to. I might ask some questions. There are probably parts of the business I'm more involved in, but a lot of it's about just being with the team and with the people. What are we doing next? Sometimes creating a sense of urgency about certain things, but really supporting the rest of the leadership team. Spend a lot of time, you know, offering time in terms of coaching and support. So, you know, obviously we have the direct reports that I work with day and night, but quite often I'll sit with their team members and we'll just do coaching sessions about what are you working on, what are you struggling with, how can we think about it. And, you know, because if you think about over the last sort of, you know, 23 years or so, we've probably gone through some of these challenges before, or we've gone through a version of it. So to be able to help, you know, the other members of the team not have to go through perhaps some stress that we've done before because we've got a solution and we've got an idea of how we might be able to handle it. But to be honest, that's what I really love and enjoy as well, spending that time with, you know, getting a balance of spending time with customers and clients and hearing what they want to do, but really importantly, spending time with the team and saying what can we do to help move you guys forward and, you know, make your lives interesting as well as, you know, get a lot of fun and enjoyment from that.
In terms of competitiveness, what are some of your top line key principles of staying competitive in a market like this?
You know, we always try and look at it and say, what can we do to be unique and different to other people? And you know, we got a very sort of clear settling on that about 3 or 4 years ago when we said, you know, we truly believe we can be the best in the world at being a 360 agency. So if you come to us at TGP, you might just want a logo for your restaurant or your cafe, we can do that for you. But if you come to us and say, I've got this chunk of land here, I'll come back in a year's time and we'd like it all to be done and finished and ready to go, we can look at that for you. And I think the fact that we take the ideas, the curation, the conceptualization, the master planning, but then also have I'm trying to look at the right word, sometimes it's stupidity, sometimes it's bravery, sometimes it's the confidence that we can actually go and operate and deliver that for you.
Sure.
I think helps us stand out from a lot of the competition. There's some brilliant operators out there, but they tend to just be great operators and don't necessarily do the advisory planning work that we do in advance of that. But I think that helps us. But we're always out looking at the competition. We're always out, so-and-so's doing better than us, and they've got more social media followers than us there, or what can we learn from that? So we're constantly looking at that and seeing how we can get better all the time. It's very, very self-improving organisation, but done from a point of view of everyone just wanting to move forward. There's no cutthroatness about it.
Right.
It's just what can we do to learn from that project the next time. Make sure.
I want to ask you about how important is digital marketing and social media for you personally as a brand yourself, but also within the company, the business, and the food halls and the businesses you operate?
So Jim's going to start laughing because when it comes to me personally, apart from LinkedIn, I don't do any social media. I'm not on any social media platforms whatsoever, because again, it's always been quite important. But yes, I understand I have a role to play in developing TGP, but it was also, that's why my name is not above the door. It was always about trying to build something that was about the team, the people, and this amazing partnership and all these amazing individuals that we have that come together. Jim, who and the team do an amazing job in positioning us in the right way, in the right market.
Has he given you money to say that?
No. He's taking me for dinner later. That's I don't take money. You just bribe me with the dinner. No, but we have, and we have this fantastic team of people who understand how those things work. It's a little bit like I was saying before. If I'm honest, I don't really know how that stuff works. That's for experts in that area to do. I'll just come in and try and be a bit unreasonable and say, well, why can't we do that? Can we do this? And have we tried that? And those, I think, is my role in that. But we all know it's so important now, and obviously it's very nuanced as well for different markets. So the platforms that you're looking at in Western Europe are very different to what you're looking at here in the GCC. There's a much more visual nature, and we see that even in the way we present our business and we pitch for business here. It's a much more visual medium the way we do it compared to what we might be doing in Europe or America.
It's in the pitch deck now. The numbers on social media count. It's currency, so it's in the pitch deck.
And I think always the big argument is it just about numbers or is it about quality? And that's when I back out of it, because I always lose that argument. So,
Okay, so we're gonna jump over to a fun segment that we have on the show called This and That. So I will shout out some options, whichever resonates the quickest to you. Tasting menu or a la carte?
A la carte.
Alien ice cream or robot-made risotto?
They both sound horrible.
I know.
I have to choose one.
You have to.
I'll go for the robot ice cream. Should be that's got at least have a bit of sugar in it, which is going to be nice.
Alien ice cream.
Alien ice cream. So alien ice cream then.
Always plan ahead or go with the flow?
I'm a planner. Yeah, I like to. I don't like. I'm always at the airport too early.
Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah,
You're that guy at the airport.
Ones, yeah.
Be the host or be the guest?
Host, as long as I'm more in the kitchen cooking and not actually having to be at the table doing the chit chat. I prefer to be in the background and that side of things.
Well, Simon, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you better and chatting with you. And when we celebrate our birthday together, you can DJ.
I won't do that. I won't put that through, but I'll bring the playlist.
So thank you so much
Real
for your
pleasure.
time.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.